Jaden had just finished another exhausting day at work. At 23, he was juggling 2 jobs, a machine operator at a factory and a cleaner. Both roles were demanding, leaving him physically drained. After a long shift, he boarded the crowded bus home, hoping to find a seat so he could rest for the journey ahead. As the bus jolted along the road, Jaden's eyes scanned the interior. The bus was filled with people, but luckily there was a seat near the back. He hurried over and sank into it, grateful for the small relief. His boss had been especially hard on him today, and Jaden just wanted to escape the stress. His body ached from working overtime, and the day had stretched longer than usual. He had woken up at 5 a.m. and hadn't had a chance to sit down until now. As he settled in, he noticed the people around him were all engrossed in their phones, oblivious to one another. Some were scrolling through social media, others were texting, but none of them exchanged a single word. The silence felt oppressive. Jaden, lost in his thoughts, looked out the window, wondering how long he could keep this up. The work was hard, the hours were long, and he was starting to feel the weight of it all. At times, it seemed like he was on the brink of burning out. Then, the bus made a stop, and an elderly woman stepped on. She was frail, moving slowly and unsteadily. The bus was packed, and there were no available seats for her. She looked around, but no one offered to give up their seat. She seemed to grow more weary with each passing moment, leaning against the window for support. No one took notice. People kept to themselves, lost in their own worlds. Jaden couldn't ignore her. Something stirred within him, a deep sense of compassion. Without thinking, he called out, "Ma'am, you can have my seat." The woman looked up, startled by the offer. She glanced around at the crowded bus, as if not quite believing what she had heard. Slowly, she made her way over to his seat, and Jaden stood up to give it to her. "Thank you so much," she said softly, her voice tinged with gratitude. Jaden nodded, smiling gently as he helped her settle down. He stood for the rest of the ride, his feet aching, but his heart felt lighter. It was a small gesture, but he had done what he felt was right. A few minutes later, Jaden's stop arrived. He called out to the driver to slow down, but as the bus doors opened, the elderly woman reached out, grabbing his jacket sleeve with surprising strength. Jaden turned in confusion. What was going on? Before he could ask, the woman slipped something into his pocket. "Take this," she whispered. "You'll need it." The doors closed with a hiss and the bus pulled away. Jaden stood frozen, confused by what had just happened. What was she talking about? What did he need? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small piece of paper. On one side it read, 5 Queen Spark, and on the other side there was a code, 88687. Jaden stared at it, trying to make sense of it. What was this address? What did it mean? The note felt cryptic, yet oddly important. Despite the mystery of the note, Jaden's exhaustion took over. He couldn't focus on it any longer. He had to get home. He shoved the note into his pocket and made his way to his apartment, but the thought of the woman's words lingered in his mind. Who was she? And why had she given him this strange message? That night, sleep didn't come easily. The note, the cryptic address, and the numbers kept swirling in his mind. What was the connection? Why had she given him this? Was it just a thank you note? Or was there something more to it? The next morning, Jaden couldn't shake the curiosity. He decided to return to the bus stop, hoping to see the old woman again and ask her about the note. But she was nowhere to be found. The next day, he tried again, but still no sign of her. The mystery deepened. Who was she, and why had she left him with this strange message? Finally, after 2 days of searching, Jaden decided to take action. On his day off, he decided to follow the address on the note. He boarded the bus again and traveled for about 35 minutes, his mind racing with questions. The bus stopped at a quiet, suburban area with lush greenery and tall trees lining the streets. It felt peaceful, almost too peaceful for a city. Jaden got off the bus and walked toward the address, 5 Queen Spark. It wasn't a house. It was a mansion. A large gate stood at the entrance, and the long driveway led to the grand home. Jaden approached the gate, hesitating. Should he really go inside? What if this was a mistake? He knocked on the gate, but no one answered. Looking around, he noticed a security panel by the gate. Curious, he opened it and found a keypad. He glanced down at the note, remembering the 5-digit code. He hesitated for a moment, then typed in 88687. The gate creaked open. His heart raced as he walked down the driveway toward the mansion. He reached the front door and knocked. This time, the door creaked open slowly, and standing in front of him was the same elderly woman from the bus. She looked at him with a knowing smile. "Jaden," she said warmly, "I've been expecting you." Jaden was taken aback. How did she know his name? He was speechless. The woman, who introduced herself as Jasmine, invited him inside. They sat down and she explained everything. Jasmine had been a wealthy entrepreneur in her younger years, but she had fallen ill and could no longer take care of herself. She had been living alone in the mansion for some time, but her health had begun to decline. She had been looking for someone to care for her. When she saw Jaden on the bus, something about him stood out to her, a kind heart and a genuine spirit. She offered Jaden a job as her full-time caretaker. The pay would be 6 times what he earned at the factory. Jaden was shocked. This offer felt too good to be true, but it was real. He didn't hesitate to accept. He left his factory job and began working for Jasmine. His life changed overnight. Over the next few months, Jaden cared for Jasmine, cooking her meals, making sure she took her medication, and keeping the mansion in order. They formed a close bond, and Jasmine became like a grandmother to him. She shared stories of her past, her successes, and her regrets. Jaden learned so much from her, not just about life, but about kindness, generosity, and love. But one fateful night, everything changed. An intruder broke into Jasmine's home. The man was armed and demanded money, threatening to harm her. Jaden acted quickly, disarming the intruder and preventing him from causing any harm. But in the struggle, the intruder stabbed Jaden. Blood soaked his shirt as he fought to protect Jasmine. He managed to get the intruder out of the house and call for help. Emergency services arrived and Jaden was rushed to the hospital. Jasmine stayed by his side the entire time, never leaving him. It was a long and painful recovery, but Jaden pulled through. Once he was back on his feet, Jaden refused to leave Jasmine alone. He continued to care for her with even more dedication, knowing how fragile life was. Jasmine's health deteriorated, and soon she could no longer respond to her medication. Jaden rushed her to the hospital one last time, but this time there was nothing the doctors could do. Jasmine passed away quietly in her sleep with Jaden by her side. He was devastated. She had become like family to him. The funeral was a quiet affair with only a few close friends and family members present. But a few weeks later, Jaden received a letter from Jasmine's lawyer. The letter informed him that Jasmine had left all of her wealth to him. The mansion, the properties, the investments, everything. Jasmine had been a successful entrepreneur and philanthropist, and now Jaden had inherited her entire fortune. With his newfound wealth, Jaden was able to help his mother get the medical treatment she needed. He paid for her bone marrow transplant, and soon she was on the road to recovery. His life had changed in ways he never imagined. Jaden never forgot the lesson he learned that day on the bus. Kindness, no matter how small, can lead to life-changing results. His selfless act of giving up his seat had opened the door to a new life, one filled with love, gratitude, and unimaginable blessings. As Jaden sat in his new home, reflecting on everything that had happened, he couldn't help but think back to that moment on the bus. The moment he had given up his seat for an elderly woman he didn't even know. He never could have imagined that such a simple act of kindness would change his life forever. Sometimes, life has a way of rewarding us when we least expect it. It's in those small moments, those fleeting decisions, that we find the greatest meaning. Jaden's story reminds us all that kindness is never wasted, and even the smallest gesture can create ripples that transform lives, our own and the lives of those around us. If you've ever wondered whether your actions matter, remember Jaden. Remember that a simple act of selflessness can lead to a future beyond your wildest dreams. In the end, it's not about what we accumulate, but the love, care, and compassion we give to others that truly defines our legacy. Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed Jaden's story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment your thoughts below. We'd love to hear how this story touched you, and remember, No act of kindness is ever too small.